We are beginning with this session now. Good evening, everyone. Team Tajagna is back with yet another interesting and enlightening session and is extremely overwhelmed by the presence of our esteemed speaker, Ms. Akansha Tyagi. I, Barkha Wadhwa, take this opportunity to thank Tajagna for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be the bridge between speaker and the audience. Before we grace the presence of our guest, I would like to read out general instructions for our lovely audiences. First, please keep your audios off throughout this session to avoid disturbances. Second, please type in your queries and questions in the chat box for a good interactive and learning session. So let's start off by introducing you all by our speaker, Ms. Akansha Tyagi. She is the founder of Social Friendly and an artist by passion. She interprets the convergence of human interventions across business, art, and lifestyle. Akansha started her career in digital space, but through years, she has continuously explored the online and offline landscapes and the ways to bridge the gap. Apart from helping organizations, she also helps thought leaders to understand these landscapes and interpret themselves as a brand through her trainings and workshops. Akansha, over the years, has worked with the global brands and governments such as Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas India, Ministry of Information and Communication Government of Bhutan, the South Asian Symphony Foundation, Ministry of Environment and Forest India, Coca-Cola, Zee Limited, Nepal Economic Forum, Himalayan Consensus, and many more. Now, I would like to request our convener, Dr. Smarika Navani, to welcome Ms. Akansha Tyagi with the virtual bouquet. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Barkha. Uh, it is a privilege to honor Akanksha here. Akanksha is also our ex-student, and I remember her as a very bright student. Akanksha,
Yes, ma'am. I'm very
please,
much present.
please accept the bouquet,
Thank you
the
so much,
virtual
ma'am.
bouquet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would say it is my honor, first of all, to be considered by you, to be called by you here, and to be considered a little bit worthy to impart whatever knowledge I've gained over the years to lovely, vibrant, beautiful women that we have here. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, and I feel so good that you accepted our invitation readily, and I'm sure the girls are going to feel motivated after meeting you. Okay?
Sure,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank
Sure.
you so much, Akansha.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request the President, Archie Agarwal, to welcome Mr. Dr. Smarika Navani with the virtual bouquet.
Welcome, ma'am, and thank you for joining in, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to be present here today and conduct this session. We feel
Thank you, Archie.
honored.
Thank you, Archie.
Thank you so much, Archie. Change is hard because change is human. Now, more than even, we must empower people to become more adaptive, more open to collaborations, and more often doing new things. Soft skills are increasing in demand, and we can use technology to expedite meaningful change. With these words, I would like to introduce the topic for the today's session, that is going that extra mile, rescaling for the post-pandemic world. Okay, so starting with the very first question, which all of us are very curious to ask you, Akansha, that is your journey and what motivated you to create Social Friendly?
Well, that is a I would say I can write essays on that answer, but since we are slightly time bound and we have so many topics to cover, um, see, I think in life there are only two reasons why someone thinks of going out on their own. Either they feel that they have a really unique idea in their head, or they somewhere start feeling that they're reaching a threshold. For me, it was both. So I after DRC, I did my MBA. as was pre-planned. I was very young, and I had already, sort of discussed with my father that, I want to do this, and this is going to be my career path, and these are the things that I'll achieve. Until the time I was doing my MBA, I was ticking everything off, and then I was one of the first batch in my MBA college to get placement with a really good package in one of the most prestigious media companies. I would prefer to not name it right now. But then, everything was really happy. I thought I had arrived in life, and then I started working, and I constantly kept feeling that, there's something missing. Maybe I can add more to it. Not from the organization side, because of course, they do their best to train the employees and everything. But I felt that from my side, there's something missing. Why am I not being able to sort of, fill that gap? I felt sort of a void. Then I felt that maybe I was in sales. I felt that maybe I'm more of a creative person, and I'm in sales, so that's not suiting me. Maybe I should change my field. And I was new. I had just joined a very big organization. I took a big risk, and I left it for a smaller agency with almost half the money that they were paying me. It was a big shock for everyone, for my parents, for everyone to, leave a brand and then go to an agency. But then I went there, I enjoyed a lot, I learned a lot, it shaped me to become who I am today. I learned what is digital. I learned what is social media. I learned what exactly means to be creative. So yes, there was a lot of hard work, and I was pretty much happy with the space I was in. And that continued for a while. So I'd say for nearly 3-4 years I was working. But then, as I said, that there's this nag in you that keeps telling you that maybe there's something more to it, and then you keep feeling that you're reaching the threshold. So my friend from college, my business partner, and now my husband Prasenjit, and we got to talking. And we said that, it seems pretty early in our career, and maybe people will say it's not wise, but let's just take a leap. Let us take a leap and let us form something. I have experience in digital. I had a fairly good experience. I was handling, I'd handled 10 plus prestigious clients up until now. So I knew, 90% I knew what was digital. And then, Prasenjit had a lot of experience in tech and with startups. So we thought that, okay, let's go ahead. Let's see what happens. We can always fall back and get a job if it doesn't work out. And then from that one conversation till here, I do not know how time passed. So yes, that was the main, I would say, the crux of why I thought of forming Social Friendly. But then, when we started, we had different ideas. We wanted to do a lot of different things. Then we met the right people. We went to the right place. We put in a lot of hard work in ourselves, not just the organization, not just the work that we did. We put a lot of hard work in ourselves because we started early. So we had to unlearn and learn a lot of things, right? First, you need to unlearn, because there are a lot of things that to be true, and then you realize, no, this is not how the world works. Then you'll relearn, and then henceforth, slowly, gradually, with a lot of perseverance, with a lot of ups and downs, but with a lot of grit and a lot of hard work, we are here.
That is really inspiring for all of us. So moving on, what was the main aim of Social Friendly, and what are the main fields that it deals with?
Sure. So see, Social Friendly, as I said, there has to be something unique into what you put in. Social Friendly is essentially a consulting, but we are a creative and a management consulting, right? So there are aspects that we handle in the creative space with consulting projects, and then there are the regular management consulting aspects. To put an example, we've done consulting projects with relation to communication, with skills, with data, with event. Recently, we did a virtual event with under the aegis of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So the entire concept of social friendly is to bring in a holistic approach to bridge all sorts of gaps for both organizations as well as individuals. So we also, empower, I would say, individuals digitally and vice versa. We've worked with a lot of diplomats, helping them to sort of shape after their diplomatic career. They want to be an author, or they want to start with something unique with their lives. So we help them, we empower them digitally, we map their process, and similarly with the organizations also. Yes.
As you mentioned creativity, and we have seen like you have explored various creative fields like photography, singing, poetry. So how does creativity, imagination play a big role in shaping you as a person?
Well, see, I'm of a different thought process. I personally think, what I've seen with myself and a lot of other creative people, it's the other way around. Okay, so it's the person that shapes the creative process, right? So creativity is I'm sorry if I sound a bit philosophical, but I would like to put in an analogy here and there, so to paint a nice picture. Creativity is like a river, and your personality, your thought process, and the kind of person that you are has to be like an empty vessel to give it a shape, right? So if I take my own use case, as a kid, when I was in school, as I said, I always wanted to do something extra. So more than studies, I was always into music. I was always performing. I was always dancing. I was always acting. I was in theater, debating. I was doing extempore, everything except sports, because I couldn't run. So that is the only thing what I couldn't do, because if I ran, I fall. So that's the only sphere that I couldn't do. And other than that, I was very thin, so I was exceptionally underweight. So there was no tug of war option also for me. So other than sports, I was into everything. So that shaped me into sort of a person who always wanted to do something extra, always wanted to go beyond that is served to you in a platter. Then after school, I came to Doltram. We were here to study. But then, as you know, Alaya happened. I was constantly on a lookout, with whatever resources we had. I used to travel long back, I used to stay very far from college. So I couldn't devote so much time into staying back in college and, probably practicing for theater. So that sort of went away from me, but then I found music. So, there was always constant need to find something extra. After that, I went to Amity. Now, I did my MBA from Amity Business School. There was no club, no music, nothing of that sort, because the basic reason why everyone was there to get a B school degree and then get a placement, it was clear cut, it was one way through. But again, me being me, I was constantly searching that, I'm sitting in the classroom well and fine, but I need to do something extra. So I went to my dean. Luckily, he was also a statistics professor from Delhi University and later dean in Amity Business School. I told him, sir, I am from Dolathram and we've seen this sort of culture there, and I think this is missing. I was brave enough to go and tell him. I thought that maybe he'll get a bit angry, but he got ecstatic. He jumped out of his chair and he said, this is what I wanted. I have been a teacher in DU. I know what is the culture there. I want you to bring that culture into Amity Business School. And that is all he had to say. After that, we formed a music society there. We participated in multiple competitions. We were competing with the top B schools like IIMs for B plans. We made documentaries. We sang. Anything and everything. We were videographing. We took part in so many competitions. So see, the creativity that came was because of the sort of person that I am. And even today, why I told you this whole picture, this whole journey, is that even today, when we are writing proposals, when there is sort of a work request that comes in, I always go back to my team and ask them that this is what we're supposed to do, but what extra can we put in here? For example, we are supposed to deliver ABC, but what is that X that we can add? And always that need, that desperate need, that grit of finding that X has always inspired me to find the root of creativity, has always brought out the innovation, has helped me to sort of have that kind of imagination.
That's great. So, as we all know that the environment we are living today is very dynamic. So, what are the skills that are going to be in demand in business in the coming years?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. See, as it is the environment, the work environment that we live in, the kind of life that we've been dealing was very dynamic. And with the pandemic coming in, it was so unprecedented. We absolutely had no idea how to handle it, to do what. But this makes us that then 1 year, almost a year living in the pandemic, it is a big introspective question that has struck everyone, be it a student, a working professional, or simply a human being, that how do you shape your life so that any unprecedented situation that comes in tomorrow, you are not sort of baffled, you're not shocked, it's not something surprising. So there are definitely a lot of skills that will come up. Some of the very obvious ones being data. We are becoming so digital, and every second, every millisecond that we spend online, there is some or the other data being generated. So who is going to interpret that data, and how are they going to interpret it? There's a lot of work going on, such as AI and virtual reality and so on and so forth, but still, it's like the dark side of the moon. It is still unexplored. So data, tech, these are the obvious answers. But one thing which is not obvious and people are still not talking about, and I want to tell you all students here, is that human intervention and human interpretation is going to be the most important skill in the coming future. And what I mean by that is people management, understanding of people emotions, understanding of emotional quotient, and how do people react in certain situations, and how to manage that is going to be one of the most important skills for anyone and everyone in whichever sphere of life you work in. Yes, that's what I think, according to me.
Okay. So, as you talked about the digital aspect, like we need to be very digitally or technologically driven. So, how does the digital aspect bridges the gap in this new era? And there is one thing like new trends are coming up on social medias. So, how recurring is the word outdated in the digital world?
um, See, I think the word outdated is a concept that is beyond digital. I that has been before digital, and that will stay, because outdated. I personally feel outdated is a concept that is brought out by people when they feel that this no longer makes sense, right? So whenever something is no longer going to make sense to you, you will feel outdated. And whenever something no longer is going to make sense to 1,000, to a lakh, to a big number of people, it becomes globally outdated, right? So for example, right now you may feel that buying office clothes is outdated because it no longer makes sense to you. And if tomorrow everyone in the world starts wearing pajamas, then pants are going to be outdated, right? So outdated is a subjective word. And I don't personally believe in things being outdated. I believe that things make sense, they don't make sense, and then there is always a possibility in future that they will start making sense again, because it's a normal curve that goes up and down and up and down. Now, as you and the first question that you asked is about how important is digital and how it is bridging the gap. I think that's what you asked, right? See, what we don't understand is we think of digital being a separate universe, a separate world altogether. We have to see that offline and online are not two separate worlds. They are hemispheres. It's the same world, one half and the other half. They're very much conjoined. So definitely, digital is part of the same world, and digital is a crux of the same world. So it is very difficult to sort of say that it's bridging a certain gap. What digital is doing, it is bringing a sort of platform that gives you a chance to do outreach, right? So in whatever you want to do, if you were offline, if you're doing a certain thing and only 100 people knew about it, now you have an opportunity where 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, lakh, multiple people can know what you were doing. So in a way you can say that yes, it is bridging a gap, but actually it is making you travel to the unexplored territory that you weren't exploring before. It is giving you an outreach platform. I'll give you a very small example here. I have a friend who runs a coaching institute in where I stay, and his coaching institute is exceptionally popular. But as of now, the students coming to his coaching institute were only 5 mile radius, right now, right? Because of course, I mean, no one will travel 20, 30 kilometers for coaching, and they're students, they're school going students. So in pandemic, everyone shifted online, he shifted online. Now he has students who are from 20, 30 mile radius also. He has students from different cities because he is online. So what has digital provided him? Digital has provided him with a outreach platform. So in a way, yes, you can say that it bridges the gap there. But I'd like to see offline and online work conjoined. I like to see them together. I don't like to see them separately, and you shouldn't see them separately. And as for outdatedness, I think it's a concept that we should not give too much thought into it. However Kiki and Dalgona coffees there are, they'll always be the regular black coffee for me.
Yeah. So moving on, you have talked about like human convergence. So I have one question. How does personal branding make more sense to the students than professional? And what are the basics of personal branding and from where to start? Like from how can we start it?
Good. See, we give a very big fancy, see, that's what, when you work, that's what you do. You give big fancy words to simpler concepts like personal branding. It sounds heavy duty. It sounds like you need to read a 5,000 pages book to understand what is personal branding. You do need to read it. I'm not saying you don't, but because you're students, and to bring it down in a very simple format. Personal branding is a process where you sit down and you introspect and you think that what is the best thing about myself. Could be anything. Doesn't need to be very skill oriented. It doesn't need to be, okay, I bring in 100% marks in so and so subject, so that subject is the best thing about me. No, that's not how it works. It has to be very much internal. It can be something like, I'm good with making new friends, or I'm good with sitting alone and introspecting things. It can be something very simple like that. So personal branding is a process where you sit down, you take out the best quality about yourself that is essentially internal, and then you chart out sort of a map where you use that quality to make your career path shine. Right? So for students, personal branding is exceptionally important, because I'll tell you why. When you must have applied for colleges, there was so much competition, right? Because you were all judged on the basis of marks. So it's a common platform. Now, let's say there are 100 people who got 99. Okay. So they got into one college. Now the same 100 people again got 99. They got into a post-graduation college. Now same 100 people will not get same job, or will not get the same reward, or not get, there has to be some sort of distinction. Now all those 100 people who have been getting 99 will think that I'm best. I should be getting all the opportunity, but that's not how it works in real world, right? So on what parameter should you be judged? So that is where personal branding comes in. So from the starting, students should sit down and sort of chart out a map. I'll tell you how I did it with myself. I sat down, I wrote my name in the middle, and I wrote all the qualities that I like about myself. or all the things that I like. So I said that, okay, I'm good at speaking. I like to eat, so food is there. I like music, so music is there, and I like curating. Curating is there. So then I like architecture. I like reading. I like history. So then I combined all of it, and I sort of made a Venn diagram, and I came up with the idea that, okay, communications is something that I like. And from then I started retracting my steps, right? So first of all, you find out what is the best internal quality. You link it with a skill that is prevalent right now, and then you retract your steps. Then you go backwards, right? You found the upper side of the funnel, and then you go down backwards. Then you bring down point by point that, okay, what can I do right now? So for example, if there is someone of you who thinks that I'm very creative, so how can you bring that creativity out? You have to start right now. You can't write that I'm creative on your resume and let people believe. You have so many options these days, online being a platform that as I said, it gives you outreach. So how are you creative? In what way are you creative? And how can you be more creative than others? That is something that you have to start working on and start putting out right now. Maybe it's you build an Instagram profile, as simple as that. If you like writing, if someday you feel that your career path leads to, say, being an author, so you have to start right now. You have to start writing things right now. You have to start a little bit right now, little bit, and you have to make sort of a platform for yourself where you voice that creativity out. So that is what is personal branding, I would say, for students right now at a very basic level. When you go for professional, then it becomes a lot of other things. Then it becomes, making your website, then it becomes mapping down what you wear, what you talk, how you speak, and then there's a lot of other things. But at the very basic, that is what you all should be doing.
Hope our audience have just got an idea of such a heavy term, personal branding, in a better way. So next question would be, does network marketing hold significance today? What are the things that are needed to be kept in mind before entering in this field?
I think network marketing is a very 90s concept. I'm not sure how many of you were there in the 90s. No, really? Am I that old? It was shocking. So, no, when we were kids, then network marketing was seeing its boom. There were a lot of organizations that were doing only and only network marketing. There was thousands and thousands of people getting together. So currently, I'm not sure if network marketing as a career option or as a organization or as something that you focus your energies into sounds viable. But what I would like to point out here is that what network marketing has taught us is the strength of having networks. So rather than network marketing, we should not focus our energies into creating networks, right? Because for now, the time is such that just degrees, just skills, just being able to do something perfectly doesn't, sort of give you that much head start. You need to know the right people. And you know the right people only when you create networks. But then there's a catch. You should not create networks with the agenda of getting some sort of a favor or a business or a job opportunity. You should create networks for learning. You should meet people who have seen the world, who are just simply travelers. Just understand, why do they travel? What have they learned? You should meet people who are CEOs and at the same time they're writing books every month. So why are they doing it? That is the kind of network that you should invest in. And I mean, it's an age-old saying, your network is your net worth. So that stands true even today. I think that would be my take on this.
So next question is, what are the suggestions that you would like to give the young entrepreneurs or the young students who are on the verge of entering into the post-pandemic world?
Okay. So suggestions to, sorry, your voice broke. I actually, your voice broke in the middle. Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah. What are the suggestions that you would like to give to the young entrepreneurs or the young students?
Okay, got it. See, anyone who is trying to go out on their own, who's trying to start out on their own, I like to, suggest a few things. The first thing being is that in this digital world, the digital space has given a lot of things to us. It has given us outreach, it has given us platform, but it has also given something that is not much appreciated, and that is the need for instant gratification. By what I mean by instant gratification is that we want the results instantly. I just posted a photograph. I want 100 likes. I want it right now, right now, right now, right now. Everything I wanted right now. So that whole concept of perseverance is somewhere fading away. Now, if you want to, it may work out for some people, but I think that if you want to go out on your own, if you plan to be an entrepreneur, pandemic or no pandemic, doesn't matter. You have to forget about instant gratification, because nothing will come instantly. It requires a lot of perseverance. So this whole need for instant results, you should just forget it. It's just not going to happen like that. You will get results in due time, but it will take perseverance. So first of all, no instant gratification, and a lot of perseverance, right? And a lot of hard work. Now, hard work, not only in performing the work that you're doing, a lot of hard work in yourself. You have to invest in yourself. When we use the word invest, we think of money. I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about time. So you have to invest time in yourself. You have to, as I said, unlearn. First of all, you have to unlearn a lot of things, and then you have to relearn them. Right? So a lot of things that you know to be true, you think, okay, this is how the world works. You will realize that this is not true. Then now you can't be rigid, because you're going out on your own. You want to start up something on your own. So you have to learn a lot of things. So no instant gratification, unlearning and learning. Third most important thing, find a mentor. People, when they think of becoming an entrepreneur, they think that I'm going out on my own. So now everything that I have to do will be done by me, and I will take all the decisions, and I will take all the business decisions, and I will make all the choices. It is wrong, because when you're starting, as any other field, it is pretty new to you, and you may have some idea, but it is always better, always recommended to have a mentor who will guide you through. So find someone who has already traveled your journey, which you're starting out right now, who can guide you through your initial years. Don't become too dependent on someone, but yes, finding a mentor is very, very essential. And at the last, as I mentioned, networking is very important. Travel as much as you can, as much as your pocket allows. Travel with the whole purpose of meeting new people. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, talk to them. Just simply, if someone is doing organic farming and you are dealing with data, and you think, I have no relation with organic farming, but talk to them. Why are they doing it? Get that sort of an exposure. So no instant gratification, unlearning and learning, finding a mentor, and at the last, making your network. That is what I will suggest anyone who wants to start up something of their own.
That's great. So now, if anyone has any further questions, they are free to drop them in the chat box. We will take up. There is one question in the chat box.
Any advice for 2020? I think one advice is that just take it easy, right? Because life as it is very stressful right now. There are a lot of things that are going to change, but think of the positive side is that you are at a cusp of a great change that will happen. So right now you are on the edge of a huge starting point. You have a great journey in front of you. So don't feel very bogged down, don't feel stressed that how am I going to achieve this? How am I going to do that? Have a plan ready. It's always good to have plan A. I have plan A's, I have B's, and then I have C's. So I always have 3 plans in mind, but I never attach myself to them. Be detached. Because whatever you think is correct for you today may not turn out to be so. So be open to learning new things. It is very important to learn. And today, as much as classroom learning is important, the learning that happens outside classroom is exceptionally important. So learn as much as you can. And by learning, I don't mean just bookish learning. Learn from anywhere and everywhere. You go to a restaurant, you see a nice table, you see nice lights, you learn about them. What is this? I don't know how many of you know how to eat with chopsticks. It's a great task. The moment you learn that, you feel like a good accomplishment. Learn how to eat with chopsticks, and then learn how to eat with hands. So learn everything and anything that you can, because now is the time. And everything that you learn today is going to be relevant in the coming days in life. And yes, I would say that enjoy, have fun. I had a lot of fun. Ma'am, Samarika ma'am knows it very well. That I had more than required fun when I was in college. So you probably won't get this time back. And while you're having fun, keep learning, keep enjoying, and keep your head in the right place and your heart in the right place.
So Sakshi wants to ask how to find a mentor.
That's a very relevant question. It's a very good question. Finding a mentor is okay. So finding a mentor is like finding a life partner. I mean, please don't correlate both. But what I'm trying to say is it's a very difficult task. But when you are trying to find a mentor, you should always know what you're looking in a person. Right? So you have to understand what is your journey, and you have to find someone who has had that journey. Now, we always find mentors who we know in front of us. I think that you should go beyond your comfort zone. There are a lot of people who are in working sphere, who are ready to help you out. So by mentor, I don't mean that you start, sort of taking classes with them. Just reach out to a lot of people that you can on LinkedIn, on social media, because now we have that sort of platforms with us. Reach out to them, tell them that this is don't disclose your entire idea, because, you need to have that confidentiality also taken into account. But tell them that, I want to do something of my own, and I was hoping that you could guide me. And you never know, maybe from that one question, one conversation, it can lead you to a great relationship with your mentor. So yes, just don't, by mentor, I don't mean that you find one guru and you stick to that and you sort of go to a gurukul, but you talk to a lot of people who have had similar journeys like yourself.
Okay. So Divyanshi has a question. Is there any specific time to start, or we can start when we feel we are ready?
That's an exceptional question. The best time to start is when you feel that now it is getting highly late. I should start right away. No, the best time to start is absolutely when you feel ready. When you feel that, okay, now is the time that I should definitely be doing something. And I think it's a calling that comes from within. When you feel that, okay, I really need to do something more. I need to do something extra. So that is the best time when you should start. Because if you look at other people and you see and you think that, okay, so and so is doing this, and they are putting so much effort. This person is learning this language. So many people are learning this language. I should be doing it. You won't have your heart into it. You should start when you feel that now this is what I want to do and this is how I want to start. So it should be very internal. That's what I mean to say.
That's true. So Debopriya has a question. How can we work on our personality? Some personality development tips.
See, working on your personality is a continuous process, right? It's not a 15-day course that you can do. But one of the basics of enhancing your personality is, first of all, recognizing that you want to improve it, right? So after you have accepted the fact that, you want to improve, but I think, see, first of all, I think personality is a wrong word. That's something that we constantly keep using, personality. But I don't feel that personality is the right word. Personality is who you are, and you should not change it, first of all. That's the basic, that's the core, that's what you've grown up to be. That's the kind of person that you are. So we should aim to change who we are, but we should aim to imbibe skills that makes it more sharper, right? That makes it shine. So let's not say that we need to change our personalities. Let's just say that we need to polish it. We need to shine it, and we need to mold it in a way that it comes out in the best way possible. So I think that the best way to shape your personality is meeting the people and listening to the people and reading the people you think you want to be like. That's the best way to do it. Read about people you aspire to be like. Look at their videos, look at what they wear, how they talk, how they walk, what is their thought process. Personality is not and also personality is not external, it is internal, right? It is a thought process, it is vision. Your vision reflects your personality, your thought process reflects your personality. So read about people, listen to people, meet people who have great vision. So that is how you can, sort of start with the basics of molding your personality. And then as you grow, as you get experience in life, automatically you will shine. It just happens naturally.
I think Debapriya got her answer. Eshita has a question. Ma'am, can you spell out the core philosophy of your foundation and your practices and how they are interlinked to each other?
See, the one and only philosophy, it's social friendly is not, I wouldn't say it's a foundation, because foundations are of a different format. We are a consulting, but yes, we do have a core philosophy, and that core philosophy is to give a holistic approach to our clients, is to give an experience, not work, not deliverables. It is to give them an experience that when they go back, they feel that I loved working with them. And we always aim to deliver experience. That is the core of any and every work that we do. For example, we have created theme songs for organizations. We have also created digital maps and websites and applications. I'm just stating a few examples. But if you ask me what is the success story, I will say a success story is when my client comes and tells me that, I loved working with you guys. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great experience. So that is our core philosophy, that whatever you do, whatever nature of your work is, the experience that you deliver should be exceptional.
Okay. So Sakshi has another question. What if she don't have a plan, and what to do what if I don't have a plan?
Let me tell you, Sakshi, even I don't have a plan. If you watch Friends, I would like to quote Phoebe here. I don't even have a plan. So you can never have plans. Plan is something that when you have, it is difficult to achieve and they never come true. And when you don't have them, that is when the exceptional things happen. So don't stress out on the fact that you have a plan, you don't have a plan. But yes, you should constantly keep interpreting that what should be my plan. Because in that process of interpreting, in that process of introspecting that what should be my plan, one day somehow something will strike in and you will know that, okay, this is what I wanted to do all this while, right? So having a set out plan is not an achievement. Sitting with yourself every single day and introspecting what you should be doing, what you are doing, and how can you do it better is an achievement.
I hope she got her answer. So Anuratya has a question. What should we do when our different qualities don't point towards any specific profession?
Understood. That's something very relevant. But it's a misconception. You think that your qualities don't point towards a sort of a profession is because you have probably not sat through, sitting with yourself in an extensive manner. Because it's just not possible. That's not how it happens. But then correlating is an art. So as I said, I will suggest that you sit down, you make a chart, right? As I said, you write your name. It sounds very childish, but it helps a lot. You write your name in the middle, You write every single qualities around yourself. Circle your name with all the qualities. And then you write the career profession, the skills that are relevant today. And then try to correlate what makes sense. If still something is not making sense, you can probably get professional help. You can find people who give career advices, but find good people, who have that sort of an expertise. You tell them that this is what I'm good at, because everything is correlated to something. You can now, and especially at this point of time where you kids are, there are so many opportunities that every quality that you have, you can somewhere or the other connect it with some of the career professions. Yes, it may happen that the career path is not that conventional, it is unconventional, but then you can always find out a way to go through a conventional side, or you can always take that leap of faith and go at it.
Okay, so Jaya Singh has a question. Please give me some tips to improve my communication skills.
As I said, read, listen, read a lot. Reading is very important. Nowadays we feel that just watching English movies, I can, grab in the accent and, that's going to help me. But communications is not about saying the right words. Communication skills is saying the right things. And there is a big difference. You can use the right words, but at the end, the message that you give might have been wrong. So to do that, the most important thing is read a lot, read people that who you would like to be, listen a lot, listen to the people who you again would like to be, and talk to yourself. Talk to yourself as much as you can. You keep having those question answers, keep putting yourself, like what I do with I used to do, I've always had this habit, is that I keep, whenever I'm feeling bored and I'm sitting alone, I put myself in certain situation and I say that, okay, if tomorrow I am asked this question, if what will be my answer? So I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly introspecting, I'm constantly interpreting. If tomorrow for small example, if you're watching TV and there's a debate going on, and if you feel that there's someone else something, and then you should, sort of sit down and say, okay, what if I was in this person's place and this question was asked to me? What would have been my answer? So yes, read, listen, and talk to yourself.
Debopriya has a question. Any 3 things that you have learned from life that you would like to share with us?
Most important thing is that nothing comes in handy. You have to put in a lot of hard work in whatever you do. And if you are brave enough to give your time, to invest your heart and sweat, it will come true, right? But you just have to wait it out. Secondly, your gut feeling is one of the biggest supporters. So you have to introspect, you have to talk to yourself, you have to be sort of a person who can understand, first of all, what is the gut feeling, and know how the gut feeling feels like. So sort of relying on yourself, being self-dependent. Always, whenever you're faced with a challenge, sitting with yourself and thinking that, okay, now what I should do is the most important quality in life that you can have. And then, of course, being a nice person, being humble, being to the ground, having your heart in the right place, having your mind in the right place, always being open to learning, always bowing with joint hands in front of people who know more than you or who have had better experiences than you. It will take you a long way.
So we have reached towards the end of the session. Thank you so much, Akansha, for such a wonderful and fruitful session. We wish for you to reach heights. Thank you for instilling in us a sense of vision and clarity. Now, I would now like to call our President, Archie Agarwal, to express a vote of thanks.
I, on the behalf of entire Quiz Society, would like to express my sincere gratitude to Ms. Akanksha Tyagi for giving an excellent coverage on all the creative and encouraging fields. I would like to thank Dr. Smarika Navani for guiding us throughout in the organization of this insightful session. Lastly, I would like to appreciate the efforts of the Jagna's whole team and would like to thank them for making this an interactive session. And also, I would like to thank the entire team of Alaya who have joined us today. So, thank you, Vartika and her team for joining this and helping this meeting so insightful.
Thank you, Akanksha. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for guiding the students. Okay, one thing I want you to tell us, students, if it is possible, if you have some time. Do you have some time?
Yes, yes, ma'am. I'm all here for you all.
Thanks. Thank you so much. You guys started off with Alahaya at DRC. So how did you begin it?
So,
How did you nurture it? How did you begin it? How did you nurture it?
yes, I was the first batch of Alaya, and unfortunately, it was my final year, so I didn't get much time to be there and to see it blooming. And in later years, I had friends from Delhi University who said that Alaya has become one of the best music societies in DU, and I congratulate you all. So Alaya started. I remember Drishti was one of the students in third year from another course, and suddenly I heard that there are some auditions going on, and Drishti was doing it. So we went there, we auditioned. There were thorough auditions for 3 days. We were auditioned on different bases, on our pitching, on our skills, singing styles, and then after that, a couple of us, few girls, around, I guess, around 10. It's been a long time, so I don't remember the exact number. We were all selected. So we mutually selected each other. It wasn't something that someone was judging you, someone was rejecting you, because we were just starting out. And without sort of getting approvals for funds or anything, we just went at it. We signed ourselves up for various competitions. So we were doing antaksharis also, and we were performing for folk music also. And I performed in LSR for light music vocal, and I won also.
Great.
So I won the first prize there in LSR. So all of us, we gathered our certificates. We sat down. At that time, we had not even finalized the name Alaya, actually. So it's an interesting fact that I was coming back from LSR with Drishti after performing, and I told her that, why did you give the name Alaya? And she said that I was thinking of giving the name Yaman, but then we also had another person with us. Her name was Aditi, I guess, and she was from the south, and she said that Yaman in south is not, I guess, it's not a very positive word.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have a positive meaning. So then we got to naming it Alaya. Then after that, we made a group song that we would perform whenever there's a group song that has to be performed. So the basic thing that all of us were doing, all of us were putting our heart into it, and all of us were trying to come up with the best possible way. We designed our dresses. We had blue kurtas and beige churidar and a beige dupatta. So there was one person who was responsible for doing that, for arranging. One day, Master Ji came in and he took our sizes, and we were practicing whenever we could get time. So the one of the main things that everyone was doing was we were putting our heart into it. We were putting our soul into it, and all of us were sitting together with combined efforts to make it possible, to make it happen, and to make it one of the best music societies. And I had also given ECA auditions when I was joining college, and but then I got admission in Daulatram, so I also had some experience from there. So we were trying to bring in gurus from our schools. We were trying to teach the students what are the ways that we can improve our skills, so on and so forth. And so yes, it was I think it was one of the most exceptional experiences in my life that I had, that sort of empowered me to then go to my business school and replicate and make another music society there. So if I had not done that in Alaya, if we wouldn't have put in so much heart, soul there, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And then I would never have had the courage to thereafter go in my life and, do something on my own. So yes.
So it seems that you had a vision. All of you had a vision, and you worked towards your vision. That is how Alaya came up, right?
Absolutely.
And it's one of the most successful societies of DRC. And personally, I'm so fond of Alaya that जब भी अलाया जो है गाते हैं, कहीं भी गाते हैं, मैं जरूर जाके सुनती हूँ. आप बिलीव नहीं करोगे, मेरी 8:30 पे क्लासेस होती हैं जनरली सवेरे. तो जब मैं सवेरे 8:30 के पहले कॉलेज पहुंचती हूँ तो अलाया की गर्ल्स ऑलरेडी प्रैक्टिस करती होती हैं.
Absolutely.
This is something which has remained so for the last 10 years. I had another student called Tanisha. She also belonged to BA program, yeah, and she was also into Alahaya, and she also was a great singer, So I feel so bad. I feel so good that I've had students who are associated with Alaya, and they're doing so well. And especially you've been so creative. I didn't know that you would sing so well. Till the time I heard you, during the farewell party.
Yes.
I remember you were wearing a Bengali sari.
Yes,
right? And you sang a song.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
I was.
Thank you so much, Akanksha. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think there is there is some message in the message box.
Yeah, our team, it's a humble request from our team, like you can sing something for us, a few lines for us.
You will have to sing.
Wow, sure. No, sure. I would ask, Prasanjit is right here, so I'll ask him to bring the guitar. He won't come in the video, he'll be playing it from the background. Any requests from you guys? I'm not sure if I'll be able to fulfill it, but
Anyone has any particular song, like, so you can type in the chat box.
Anybody from Team Alaya is having any sort of request, please let us know.
okay, I'll sing a song that is on top of my head right now, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
नहीं ये बातें हैं पुरानी. जू कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी. थामा हरों का इसको किसने, ये तो बहता पानी. रा कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी. ला रा 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 Zoo, 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 zoo. La, 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 la. पीले इसमें नशा, जिसने पिया वो गम में भी हंसा. पल में रुलाए और पल में साए ये कहानी. ला रा रा कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Akanksha, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So much of your time today. I'm so glad you came and you talked to my girls.
It
Thank you
was
so much.
totally my pleasure, ma'am. I'm always, as I said, I'm always available for you, no matter how much work comes in. And I'm just a call away. And I absolutely enjoyed talking to the girls. And if you feel that, we can do it sometime again, I would be more than happy to come in.
Sure. Why not?
Yes,
Why not?
and Barkha has my email address, so I would request her to share it with the girls. I would be more than happy to answer your questions. I'm just an
Yeah,
email.
yeah.
You
I'll
can,
share it.
yes, you can share
It's
my.
a pleasure to listen to you. Now,
Thank
I
you.
would like to extend my gratitude to our president, our convener, and the teacher member associated with Tajagna for always supporting us. Our session could not have been possible without your everlasting support and encouragement. Here's hoping everyone gained some insight and wisdom from Akansha. Thank you once again, Akansha, for your time and effort. And thank you everyone for joining in.